So we had the schus to finish Basi Lagani, Topshin Chafei. Again, I don't know if the word finish is right, but at least we went through it once. So part of me was like thinking afterwards, like, what's next? You know, like, after you tackle the tzimtzum, what's next? The good thing in Chassidus is that there's never a letdown, because every mimer, it's all the same frequency. So it's not like we finished this, that what are we going to learn now? It's not going to be as, that never happens, because it's all the same, it's the same frequency. So one sugya, another sugya, but it's the same energy of truth and oneness. So we'll begin a new mimer today, Be'ezer Hashem. Since Purim is coming, it's already within Shloshim Yom, within 30 days. So we're going to learn now a Purim mimer. I hope we'll also learn another mimer before Purim. I hope at least we'll learn 2 mimerim before Purim. That's the plan. Be'ezer Hashem. So this mimer, as you could see in the headline, is Purim Tovshin Chavav. That's Purim 1966. That the Lubavitcher Rebbe said during the Farbrengen of Purim. Every year there was a big Purim Farbrengen. And in the middle of the Farbrengen there was a mimer. And it's interesting because often, Purim in many circles is considered a day, people are just like more tipsy and more lively, and it's more like of a fun tish, and different performances and Purim Rav and Purim Tish and Purim Titus, comedy, etc. But the Rebbe was the opposite. Purim was hours and hours and hours of chidushim and biyurim and Torah, pshat, and emes, drush, sod, and in a way that was often more than a whole year. The Adol Yada came out in Torah and Chassidus and Megillah. It was quite incredible. And even though sometimes there were people who drank a little, but it was thousands of people, but with usually with a lot of seriousness, in a good way seriousness. A couple of so Purim, there's tremendously deep psyches and mimerim of the Rebbe, and almost all the yisaidus of life. So this is a mimer the Rebbe said Purim Chavav, Purim 1966, and Be'ezer Hashem we're going to learn it. I want to thank Nehemiah Kaplan for the copies, for the beautiful copies. Really nice. Okay, now the class is dedicated with wishes for a complete and speedy recovery and a refuah shlema kreva for Michal Noach Halevi ben Leah. Amen. May have a speedy and complete recovery. B'chol ramach ivada v'shasagido l'arichas yamim v'shanim tovos. Amen. B'toich kol chayli Yisrael. It's interesting also, a lot of the Purim mimerim, they begin with psukim from the Megillah that you wouldn't expect. For example, in Torah Ohr, many of the Alter Rebbe's mimerim on Purim begin with psukim that Haman says. Like there's a very famous, or Achashverosh says, like Yaviyu Levush Malchus, Achashverosh says, Haman says, and the mimerim are on those psukim. Obviously, once it went into the Megillah, even if it's Haman's words or Achashverosh's words, it's part of Torah. Right? It's the way the Tanakh is quoting them. So it's already Tanakh. It's part of Kedushas HaTorah. But it's interesting that a lot of the mimerim are on those psukim. This mimer begins with an interesting pasuk in the Megillah. I mean, you have mimerim on like Ish Yehudi Hayeh B'Shoshan Abira, La Yehuda Ma'isa'ira, V'Simcha, Mordechai Yatza Melefnei HaMelech, Balayla Hu Nada Dashnas HaMelech, the high notes. But you also have other ones. So this mimer begins with a pasuk. Vayivez B'Einov L'shloyach Yad B'Mordechai Levadeh. The Megillah says, chapter 3, Esther chapter 3, like you see in footnote 1, that the king Achashverosh commanded everybody to prostrate themselves, to bow down to Haman Arash. And Mordechai was the only one who lo yichra v'lo yishtachava. And they told Haman about Am Mordechai, about the nation of Mordechai. So the Megillah says, Vayivez B'Einov. It was, I don't know what the right word, from the word bush, different, similar. It was cheap in his eyes. It was dismissive in his eyes. It was ridiculous in his eyes. To kill Mordechai himself. Vayivez, it was too embarrassing from the word, like it was a busha for him. There was a word bizayin. Right? What does bizayin mean? Bizayin, right? Buzz. Alte buzz liyem katnos is a pasuk. From the word embarrassing. It's a bizayin. Humiliating. He felt it's beneath, it's a bizayin for him to kill one Jew, to kill Mordechai. It's a pasnash. It's just one Jew. What are you gonna accomplish with one Jew? There's gonna be the same day you're gonna have more Mordechais, right? They come up one after the other. So it's an interesting word. Vayivez B'Einov. But it's not embarrassing to kill one. I mean, if you believe in killing Jews, so killing one, But that was Haman. Like one, what's that gonna be? It's below my dignity. It's cheap. It's worthless. It's meaningless. It's a waste of my time. It's futile. To the point that my friends and buddies will be embarrassed by me. It's humiliating. That's the word used. Vayivez B'Einov l'shlech yad Mordechai levadeh. Let me just see if I translate how the Chevra the English professionals translate it. I'll look in Safari. Okay, so he translates it like this. Haman disdained. It was a disdain for him. Vayivez, it was a disdain for him to lay hands on Mordechai alone. Ki yigidu lo yis'am Mordechai, they told him about the nation. And the Megillah continues, Vayivakish Haman lahashmid es kol ha-Yehudim asher b'chol malchus Achashverosh am Mordechai. Instead, Haman plotted to do away with all the Jewish people, Mordechai's people, throughout the kingdom of Achashverosh. And that's when he begins to cast his lot to find out what would be the best month and the best day for his plan of genocidal extermination. Chazal, part of the function of the Medrash was they were extremely attentive to every nuance in Tanakh, whether it's in Chumash or in the other Svarim of the Nevi'im and the Ksuvim. When they hear a word, it's like, why was this word chosen? What's the meaning of it? Other words could have been chosen. Right? They didn't just learn it as another book where a person writes, obviously a thinker and a good writer chooses the right words. But they saw literally every word, especially if it was a word that was off color and wasn't so consistent, it didn't belong there. What's it saying? Like this word, Vayivez. Right? You could have used a lot of words to bring out. He didn't want to. But it was the word almost like this busha, this bizayin for him. It was a disdain for him. Now, if you believe in killing Jews, it's not a disdain to kill one. It's a disdain. So the Medrash says something interesting. So there's a big Medrash on Megillah Esther. It's known as Esther Rabbah, Medrash Rabbah of Esther. You're looking for the pasuk. It's Peda Gimel pasuk Vav. Megillah Esther Peda Gimel pasuk Vav. This Medrash says Esther Rabbah Peda Parshas Zayin. The Medrash says Bazui ben Bazui. The word Vayivez was chosen, as you can expect, very meticulously. He was a Bazui, ben Bazui, meaning he was a shameful person, a person who you can disdain, Bazui, an embarrassment, a humiliation, a busha, a baz, a bizayin, ben Bazui, the child of somebody who was an embarrassment. So it's not just Vayivez is talking about his own thought process. That it was cheap for him and embarrassing for him and disdainful and distasteful for him to kill one Jew, Mordechai. We're using that word because his thought process describes him. He was one big bizayin. What's the ben Bazui? Lahalan Ksiv, we have somewhere else. Remember, you have to remember one of the drashas, the way Chazal interpret psukim, whether it's an halacha or agada. The second formula is Gzeira Shava, right? So we say every morning, There's 13 formulas, 13 principles, methodologies that Moshe gave the Jewish people how to interpret Torah, because Torah could be an ambiguous text and you have to apply it to many new cases and laws and scenarios and things are unclear. So the first thing is Kal V'Chaymer. The second principle is Gzeira Shava. Then it gets complicated. Binyanav, Klal, Prat, Klal, all the things we go through every morning. This is the beginning of Teres Kohanim, the beginning of Sifra, the beginning of Medrash and Vayikra. Teres Kohanim begins with Rabbi Shmuel. There's also Rebbe, the son of Rabbi Seguli, has another Lamed Bais Medrash Ohr but another 32 formulas. But we do the 13 each day. It says in Zohar that the 13 Midas is connected to the Gimel Midas Harachamim. The Noam Elimelech writes, Elimelech of Lezhensk, it's fantastic. He says, "B'shleishes midas atayr nidreshes." And why do you start davening with this? So he says like this: "B'shleishes midas atayr nidreshes." Only a person who cultivated in their life the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim, they're entitled to darshan Torah. Atayr nidreshes, man. Then you can hear. Then there's something to hear. B'shleishes midas. That's a real Chassidic word. B'shleishes midas. Once you cultivated the 13 midas, yamot atayr nidreshes. Then you could open your mouth. If not, go do some healing work. And the lashon is atayr nidreshes. Then the Torah, it's going to flow because he's a channel. It's going to flow. But for this, he has to work through, all the midas. Racham and Chanun, Rachapayim, Rav Chesed, Noitzer Chesed. Yeah. Just the fedora, the streimel, or the spodek, or the big black hat, or even the Hamburg. It's not gonna cut it. Huh? The Hamburg will do it, huh? Your Hamburg. I'll call upon him. So the second one is Gzeira Shava. What does Gzeira Shava mean? So it's interesting. Gzeira Shava, we have a beautiful word today for it because everybody does it every day. It's called copy-paste. What's copy-paste? When you used to use a typewriter, or even in the beginning of a word processor, right? The fact that you used a certain word on page 1 or a certain paragraph doesn't allow you to use it on page 8. You have to retype it. But today, either you cut and paste or you copy-paste. Copy-paste basically means the words that on page 8 are really just a copy of the words on page 1. It's actually the same words, I just pasted it there. Everything has a source in Torah. What's the source in Torah? Gzeira Shava. What's Gzeira Shava? Gzeira Shava means if you have a word in Parshas Toldos and exactly the same word is used in Megillah Esther, it was copy-paste. It's not a coincidence. You were talking about something, you needed to use the same word. Now, we don't do this in any other form of literature, lahavd. I mean, you take any book and you say, the guy wrote the word want in chapter 1, and he wrote the word want in chapter 29. So it's Rabbi, relax. Okay? The word want is a normal word. And you use it in chapter 1, you use it in chapter 29, because you're talking about two people wanting something. In fact, here you were talking about what a cow wanted, and here you were talking about what Louis XIV wanted. That's it. No connection. He's saying Hainu Hachmamish as Abehema. Okay. So you're making Gzeira Shava even for history. The musig of Gzeira Shava is it's a gewaldige chiddush. Because you use the word there and you use the word here, it's connected thematically. In fact, each one teaches about the other. It's giving you something. It's telling you, it's giving you information. Yeah. So it's even more than copy-paste. Yeah, I'm just saying it humorously. The idea of copy-paste is that it's the same word. In other words, it's not stam disconnected. You took it from there, you put it here, and you had to put that word here. That means the way you learn Torah is not just by learning the meaning of the words. That's obvious. There's a lot of different ways of learning Torah that are not direct. For example, this. Yeah. And this is Negei and Halach and a lot of things. Yeah. The Balaturim in Chumash, if you ever read the Balaturim, he has a very interesting mahalach. Every word, or almost every word, he's going to write, where else can you find this word in the whole Tanakh? So for example, you'll have a word Balaturim, say, v'nafshay kshura b'nafshay, right? So Balaturim might write, where else does it say in the whole Tanakh the word kshura? It turns out one place. A lot of words we think are very popular, but the way it's written that way, it's only one place. The Balaturim didn't have Google, and it didn't have Yitzhak Chachma and Bar Ilan. It didn't have any of this. But the Bariturim right away knew. It says the word kshur. It says one more place in Mishlei. And then the Balaturim always explains why the same word is used in two places. This is all based on this principle. So in halacha, you'll constantly see this. Right? You'll have the word in one place, you'll have the word in another place, and you're going to apply it. Rashi, in the beginning of Parshas Mishpatim, for example, does it with Eved Ha'ivri. You had to learn the halachas of an Eved. So the Medrash constantly does this. So when it says Vayivez, we want to look, where else do we have the word Vayivez? Where? Anybody knows? You have to know Chumash for this. Yeah, the end, very good. Parshas told us, Vayivez B'Einov, Vayivez Esav Esabchayra. Esav cheapened, he embarrassed the birthright. It says when Yaakov cooked up a stew of lentils, right? Vayazid Yaakov Nazid Adoshim. And Derech Agav, my woman's class this week, I said the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, the word from mazid comes from which word? We say somebody that had been mazid. This week's parsha says v'chiyazid. If somebody's going to kill somebody, b'mazid. So the Gemara says, it should have said v'chiyashiyah. The Gemara says it's from vayazid Yaakov Nazid. From Yaakov cooking up a dish. Lishna de b'shulihu. That's a, those who are learning Sanhedrin now, it's going to be daf samach tes in Sanhedrin. So the Netziv writes in Hamek Davar, the Netziv, Rebbe Naftali Tzvi Yudabilin, the Valash Rosh Hashiva, is what's the connection? So he says, mazid means it cooks up in you like a pot. You don't cook something in a second. It's a process. It builds up the resentment, the hatred. That's what mazid really means. Right? V'chiyazid, you planned it. It was premeditated. It was intentional. It was thought out. It's not, you don't put up the pot, everything is ready. It doesn't work that way. You need to find the fire, you need a light, and you need to put in the water, and the water gets heated up, and then you put in the food. Everybody who cooks knows microwave ovens, Chazal weren't goyres. And even today, your wife doesn't like them because they're not healthy. And even that takes 60 seconds. But it's much faster than bishul. Radiation. So the idea here is, just an example, that the word Vayazid in Parshas Mishpatim is connected to Vayazid in Parshas Taldos. L'chayr it's not connected, but they're talking about cooking. So this is very interesting. Now here it's mamish the same word, Vayivez. So when it says, when Yaakov cooked up a stew of lentils, and Esav came home exhausted and starving, and suddenly he sees this delicious dish that seemed so tasty and even healthy, it was lentils. Can't go wrong with it. So he asks Yaakov, Haliteini namina adai ma'adai mazeh. Those red lentils look delicious. Haliteini na, stuff me up with some of these lentils. And Yaakov says, no problem, but we need a deal. Yeah, I want you to sell my birthright. And Esav says, Lama li ze b'chayr, I don't need this b'chayr. This whole thing is just one big burden on me. Take my birthright and I'll eat my lentils. And that's the exchange. And the lentils change hands from Yaakov to Esav. So the Torah says Esav stood up and he ate and he drank. Vayakam, vayelach, and he left. Vayivez Esav esabchayra. That's the end of the story. Esav humiliated or embarrassed or dismissed or degraded the birthright. So exactly the same word. Vayivez B'Einov. So that's what the Medrash says. Haman is a buzzy, ben buzzy. He comes from Esav. Remember, Amalek was a grandson of Esav. Eliphaz was the father of Amalek. Eliphaz was Esav's son. It says that in Parshas Vayishlach. Haman comes from that Geza, from that dynasty. So b'meila, it's Bazui ben Bazui. There was already somebody who's a Bazui, Vayivez B'Einov. It's not only Esav degraded the B'chayre. He degraded himself. Just like Haman degrades himself. They're degraded people. That's what the Medrash says. L'halam ksiv, earlier it says Vayivez Esav B'chayre. That's why the word Vayivez is used. You're talking about people who are degraded, low. In English, they're called low lives. That's what the Medrash says. That's why the word Vayivez says. That piece in Medrash, he continues, he finishes off, and he says, Marshal the Haman Rishia Lamahu Daima. A metaphor for Haman Harasha, it's written in Aramaic, the Medrash. Lamahu Daima, what is it comparable to? What is it comparable to? So the Medrash says, La'oiv sha'asa kain al tzvas hayam. There was a bird who built a nest. A kain is a nest, right? Shiluach hakan, a kain. He built a nest for the new family, for the new young, on the beach. Al Svas Hayam means on the bank of the sea, on the bank of the ocean, at the edge of the ocean. V'shotaf Hayam Eskina. Came the ocean and flooded the nest. A wave comes over and swallows up the nest and floods the nest, and the nest is thrown into the ocean. The bird now goes crazy and vows revenge. How do you take revenge against an ocean? You ever tried? For Amar, the bird said, Eini zaz misham. I'm not going away. Ad shenase yam yabasha v'yabasha yam. I'm going to teach everybody a lesson. The yam is going to turn into a yabasha. I'm going to dry out. I'm going to leave it cold and dry. This ocean is going to become dry land, meaning there will just be a cavity, an open, empty, huge cistern without any water. And the yabasha, the dry land, will become the yam. The yabasha is going to hijack, is going to seize the property of the yam and have the water. How do you do this? How does a bird do this single-handedly? So what does he do? Noitel mayim in ayam befit. For that you have a beak or a mouth. So the oif comes with its mouth or its beak and it takes water. V'shoifech liyabasha. And he pours the water into the dry land. So he goes to the ocean and with its mouth takes some water, spits it out on the beach. Takes some more water, spits it out on the beach. But that's not enough. He made a vow that the yam is going to become yabasha. So he takes sand or dust or soil from the dry land and he throws it into the yam. Hoping that maybe after 10 or 20 minutes, what's going to happen? I guess he has a lot of patience. After 20 billion years, what's going to happen? What's going to happen is the afar will fill the entire yam and it's going to become yabasha. And the yabasha will be filled and saturated with the water of the ocean. It's going to become yam. The bird had a good friend. That's what you need friends for, yeah? To tell you in B'Stait Meshiga. For that you need a friend. So the friend of the bird comes, V'amad lo al gabav. And he stands on top of him. He's surveying what he's doing. And he tells him, Bish gada utmiya mazola. You are an embarrassment. Your mazel, God is mazel, is embarrassing. Utmiya mazola, your luck is really, really down the drain. Soif b'meh at yachil. You're incapable, you're inept, you're doing nothing. You can't do this. You made a goal for yourself that is ludicrous and absurd and unattainable. There's nothing you can do to dry out the yam and get rid of the water and take revenge of it. Go look for another job. That's the mashal in the Medrash. Interesting mashal. What's the nimshal? So remember, he started off, this is a mashal to understand Haman Rishiyah, to understand the psyche of Haman. This was Haman's goal. We're going to dry up the sea. We're done. We'll take out the water, and the sea becomes dry, and the dry land becomes the yam. He's making the ocean in a new place, and the ocean is done. This is his vengeance. So this is the bird embodied, represented by Haman. Who's the friend of the bird? Hashem tells Haman, Nebach, Shoite Shebeyolam. You're the fool of the universe. You're the Shoite of the world. Listen to what he says. I also tried this. I tried to exterminate the Jewish people. And it turned out I was inept. I was incompetent. I couldn't. Shenemar, the Pasuk says in Tehillim, but it speaks of that Tehillim Kovav 106. So it speaks now the Jewish people constructed the golden calf. Betavnis Shor Achlu Esav. They created this calf, this ox that eats the grass. So the pasuk says, "Vayomer lahashmidam." Vayomer, Hashem intended, or he spoke, or he planned to destroy them. Lule Moshe bechirei amad b'peres lefanav lashav chamasim mahashches. If not from Moshe, his chosen one, who stood up at the breach in front of Hashem to restore his wrath from destroying. So Hashem tells Haman, I tried. I couldn't. Va'ata marta lahashmet ladagalabit. And you shaita, you think you're going to get rid of them. You're saying you're going to be mash lahashmet, to destroy, ladak, to kill, la'abit, to have them all perish. You're a joke of jokes. You're a jokester. Chayecha, I swear to you. What's going to happen is as follows. Reishcha mituram, your head will be uplifted. Or in simple English, you're going to come out with a head shorter. Chalaf reshayin, instead of their head. You want to lift their head. You want to destroy them. You want to kill them. Your head is going to be instead of their head. The inun l'shivza, they are going to be saved. Va'atlit sliva, and you are going to be hanged. The translation of these words in Aramaic, he brings from the Matnas Kornas. Roishach yuram v'yusar tachas roisham. Your head will be removed instead of their head. Mituram is like from the word truma, right? Uplift, but here it doesn't mean uplift, like it means removed. Uplifted from the body, I guess. Beheaded. Hang high, yeah. Shehem yiyulat salavat. They're going to be tahatzala, to be saved. That's the word shivza in Aramaic. And sliva is hanging. Tsaluf is hanging. So you're going to be hung. This is the Medrash, all the Medrash Rabbi. This is all in the same passage where he explains the word Vayivez, that is connected to Esav, embarrassing the B'chayra. Fascinating Medrash, no?
You think the other way, since Haman thought the same thing as Hashem, so they almost look alike. It's in a good company, they think alike. They tried the same good thought.
Yeah. So here you see clearly how the depth that exists in Midrashim. You could read it. There's so many questions there. He's going to address some of them. That right away you understand that without Pnimiyus HaTorah, it's impossible to understand. And the truth is, the Rebbe writes in Tanya that he speaks about learning Ein Yaakov. Ein Yaakov is a collection of all the stories in Gemara. So the Alter Rebbe says, Roiv soides ha-Torah gnuzen ba. Most of the secrets of Torah are hidden over there, are embedded there. Especially the Meshalim, the metaphors, they're all, not all, but so many strange parables. So it looks like almost like it's entertainment, like it's a cute story with this bird. I'm a sugar bird. I mean, what's a bird needs help. What does it exactly add? Usually you give a metaphor, we spoke in the other mimer, you give a mashal, because it's such an abstract idea, you need to give a metaphor. Yeah? Well, what are you trying to even explain with this mashal? Like, what do we gain from the mashal? There's one Meshuggah in a bird, now there's a Meshuggah in a person. But in the nimshal, suddenly God says, by the way, I had the same idea. In the mashal, the chaver doesn't say I had the same idea. He says, you need help. God says, by the way, as they say, been there, done it. It just didn't work. Problem was Moshe Rabbeinu. If you're not going to get rid of Moshe Rabbeinu, it's nothing is going to work. It's a very, very difficult medrash. So it says, "V'tzarich love," and the first thing you have to understand is what in the world is the connection between Esav embarrassing and degrading the birthright, and Haman feeling that it's degradable for him to kill only Mordechai? So you're going to say the Av Shebishneim Nemeloshin Bazi. It's true. Both of them have an expression that's similar. Vayivez, Bazi. It's true. But thematically, mitzad teichen, there's no connection, apparently. You're talking about completely two different subjects. Here you're talking about Haman and Mordechai, that Haman feels that it's cheap for him. And he would be a disdain to himself and his friends if he kills only Mordechai. Okay, he needs to kill every single Jew. It's embarrassing for him. It's ridiculous for him to focus on one Jew, even a great Jew as Mordechai, who was a great leader. It's not enough. It's a busha. That's the topic. And here you're talking about the fact that he looks at the B'chayra and he says, this is degradable. In fact, what he's really saying is it's two opposite ideas. Right? Vayivez B'Einov es B'chayra. I mean, it's not. It both represents how they look at something, and their arrogance and their hatred. But in this case, Esav is looking at the B'chayra. The B'chayra is a holy thing. It's a gift. It's an opportunity. Vayivez B'Einov. It's cheap for him. Something that's holy, that's good, is cheap for him. Here, what's cheap for Mordechai? What's cheap for Haman? Murdering Mordechai. Yeah? It's not like, it's not Vayivez B'Einov Mordechai. That Mordechai was degraded in his eyes. No, murdering only Mordechai was degradable in his eyes. You're not going to say, oh, it's a holy thing, that's a good thing, then it's cheap. Right? You understand? It's mamash an opposite in you. But yet, the Medrash says, this is it. Vayivez, Gzeir Shavah, copy paste, buzz, and that's why you use the word Vayivez. And after that comes this mashal. So the truth is, in every Gzeir Shavah, the pshat is, it's not a word with a word. It's that thematically there's a connection. And therefore, the same word is chosen. The word that's chosen is a symptom of the internal connection. Like gematria. People think that gematria is like a joke. Right? Yankel and Esther, begematria, chasen v'kala. Yeah? You know the Sheva Bracha speeches. Begematria, chasen v'kala, begematria, binyan adayad, begematria, Sheva Brachas, begematria, mazel tov, begematria, asach gelt. So somebody else said, begematria, gan eden v'gehenim. I mean, once you go with gematria, it's fine. Especially today, it's very easy. Rabbi Yosef Irgas, Oh, all right, Bala Gematrius, yeah, he gets UPS direct. There was a big Mekubur, Rabbi Yosef Irgas, he has a sefer called Shemer Emunim. It's a very, very fundamental book in Kabbalah. So he writes over there that Gematria, it's not like people think anybody can make a Gematria. It starts with the theme. The two words have an essential connection. B'meila, it's expressed also in the numerology. That's the final straw on the camel's back. That's not where it begins. The same is true with Gzeir Shavi even more. And that's taka why the halachas from this place could be applied to this, and the halachas from this could be applied to this. So that's question number one. We also need to understand the metaphor of the bird. It's just a story, it's a parable, leave it, let it go. The Rebbe says that's not how you learn a mashal. If it's a mashal in Torah, it's meticulous, b'chol hapratim, with all the details. Shemesayim, you look at that mashal, he ends, b'chavere v'amad lo al gabav. It could have said another bird came. It could have said a person came. It says his friend, the friend of the bird came, stood on top of him, and told him, you're an idiot. You're not going to be able to do it. It seems very embarrassing. This seems degrading. Talk about Vayivez. This seems degrading. Who's Haman's chaver? Like his friend? Hashem. You could have used another word. It's very strange when you read the Medrash. I mean, if you read it like with attentiveness. Ba'chavere. Could have said ba'oif acher. Another bird came. The eagle came. So a wise man came. I mean, it's anyway a metaphor. So you need his chaver. What if it's not his chaver? His mother came. His father came. Somebody came with seichel hayosha. So what in the Nimshal says, Amalek Kadosh Baruch Hu Haman. That means Hashem is calling him, the Medrash is calling Hashem Haman's chaver, Haman's friend. Really? Suddenly became his friend. Now the truth is, when you think about what Hashem told Haman, it actually makes sense, because what did Hashem tell Haman? I tried to do the same thing. Which of course only makes the question far more alarming. It's not just you using the word friend. It's like he's almost telling him, I get you. You're a shaita. I also tried. Really? That's what you're telling Haman? Basically, you're copying me and learn from my inability to achieve and execute. That's the message. And Hashem is like mamish putting himself in the same category. Something is very, very difficult here to understand. Also, the end of the Medrash is also difficult. He tells Haman, your head is going off instead of their head. Why does he speak about the head? In other words, he could tell the bird, you think you're going to destroy this ocean, you're going to be destroyed. You want the ocean to dry up, you're going to be dry and dead before the ocean. I get that. So you could tell Haman, Not only are you not going to achieve what you want to achieve, what you want to achieve is going to happen to you. But he focuses on one nekuda, the head. So you'll say, well, that's what. Well, but it doesn't. It actually doesn't say in the story that Achashverosh cut off his head. It just says that he hung him. The fact that he focuses on this is also b'diuk. He doesn't just tell Haman, you're going to go instead of them. Zois chalifasi, zois tumurasi, zois kaparasi. He focuses on Reishcha, the head of Haman, instead of their head. That's also b'diuk. Why does he focus on that nekuda? Especially afterwards, he says they're going to be saved, you're going to be destroyed. Okay, you said it. But first he speaks about the head. Your head instead of their head. So obviously, this is negeya to understand what he was telling Haman. These are the questions that the Rebbe raises in the mimer. Good, powerful questions, huh?
There's much more powerful questions. It's like appears Hashem is like our enemy.
Right. Right. So it's interesting that he's telling Haman, I tried this and I couldn't. What does that even mean? Like what?
What are you trying to say?
Yeah, like, it's almost like, obviously he's not validating what Haman is saying. He's saying you're a shaita, but still, the way he says it.
The bird didn't say to the...
It's interesting. In the mashal, you don't have that. The friend didn't say, I tried doing this years ago. When I was young and stupid, I also tried changing the world. Yeah, like Rebbe Sol Salantis said, when I was young, I tried changing the whole world. Then I realized a couple of years later, I'll just change my country. A couple of years later, I realized I'll just change my city, and then I decided I'll just change my community. And then I decided I'm just going to change my family. Now I'm an old man, and I decided I'm only going to change myself. And he says, and if I would have thought about that when I was young, maybe by now I would have changed the world. Ganz gut. Right? So the bird didn't say, when I was young and stupid and I thought I'm going to change the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean and the Caribbean Ocean and of course, the Persian Gulf. Good luck with that. I also tried to do this. Or the Mediterranean, yeah? I also tried to do this. He doesn't say that. He just says your mazel is ridiculous and you're a shaitan, you're going to lose it. And we understand why. Because no bird tries to do this. It's not going to work. Take a little water, take a drink, and go home. Geh weiter, geh flee avec. Don't try to confront the ocean. But here, in the Nimshal, Hashem Taka adds, like a Kal V'Chaimer, Madach mi, the creator of the world, couldn't get this done.
What did he try to do?
Good question. So you're going to get it done. Which brings us, of course, to all these, it's all expanded questions, right? Why would he even try to do it? And it's almost like a Kal V'Chaimer, like even I tried. Why? What is the Indian in that? Why are you telling that to Haman even?
When did Hashem try it? He tried it on Yom. That we know.
It's after the Chet HaEgel. It was after, this pasuk in Tehillim is talking about after the golden calf was created. So he told Moshe Rabbeinu, Hedef mimeni, leave me alone, vashmidim. This is not working, this relationship is not working, this whole purpose is not working, I'm going to start over with you. And that's when Moshe stood up and he said, if you don't forgive them, erase me from the Sefer Shekasoftan. He fought and fought and fought until Hashem acquiesced. That's what it says. Lulei Moshe Bechirei. If Moshe, his Bachur, his chosen one, did not, Amad Baperes, did not stand at the pirza, at the breach, at the vulnerable moment. Lefanov instead, right? Lahashiv Chamasim Mehashchis, to restore his ire, to remove. Lahashiv is like to remove his ire, Chamasai. Like it says in the Megillah, Chamasai Barabai. His anger, Mehashchis, from making Hashchaz and destroying, it would have worked. But Moshe stood in the way. These are all the shilas. V'yuvon, says the Rebbe V'yuvon, all this will be understood, at least to some degree that we could understand. On this, there's a long explanation in a mimer on Purim of the Tzemach Tzedek. Which this year, the mimer was set, Tavshin Chavav, it's 100 years from the Histalkus and the Lul of the Tzemach Tzedek. Tzemach Tzedek passed away Yud Gimel Nissen, right before Pesach, Tafresh Chavav, 1866. So Tavshin Chavav, 1966, was 100 years from his Stalkus, right? So that's why when he said this mimer on Purim, the Rebbe said, Tavshin Chavav, that it's 100 years from the Tzemach Tzedek's Stalkus. And actually, next year's Tavshin Peivav is going to be 160 years from the Stalkus of the Tzemach Tzedek's Stam. Because Tavshin Chavav is 59 years ago. So Tavshin Peivav is 60 years from Tavshin Chavav. I'm just adding that. So there's a mimer from the Tzemach Tzedek, Dibra Maschel. It begins with the words, Isa b'medrash, Mashal the Haman Rishil, Etzipar Shekirina, Chuli Bachaveri Chuli, Amalek Hashbaruch Chul Haman v'Chuli. Tzemach Tzedek has a mimer that begins with these words of the Medrash. That Haman is, the metaphor for Haman is this bird. He quotes the whole Medrash. And this mimer is printed. It's printed today in Torah Megillah Esther, which is a whole sefer from the Tzemach Tzedek on the Megillah. And over there, this mimer is printed. Asked the Tzemach Tzedek, the L'chayra Tamua, the Tzemach Tzedek asked this question, Eich Amma b'mashal b'chaveirav amad le'al gabav, Eich yitzdakein b'nom shel shumar Amma le'kadosh baruch hu be'ezeh derech yisachas HaKadosh baruch hu le'chavel le'chalil. How does the Medrash use the mashal? That the friend of the bird came and spoke to him. How can you justify this expression when it comes to Hashem? In what way does he relate to Haman? Very interesting words. Be'ezeh derech yisachas HaKadosh baruch hu le'chavel. In what way does he relate to Haman? As a friend, Chalila. Or Monsey, the Tzemach Tzedek adds, Shekush Yezu Mavur Ba'alshach. That this question actually originates in the Alshach. Rabbeinu Moshe Alshach, Rabbi Moshe Alshach, wrote a commentary on the Tanakh. Yeah. On Chumash, it's called Torah's Moshe. It's a very long commentary. On Megillah, his commentary is called Masas Moshe. And the Alshach lived in Tzvas. The Alshach lived in the time of the Arizal, of the Beis Yosef. He's buried, if you go to the old cemetery in Tzvas, where you have a bunch of graves that are blue, they're dyed blue. So one of them is Rabbi Moshe Alshach in that group over there of the great Mekubalim. They lived in the 1500s. Yeah, the Alshach is near the Arizal. The Alshach was a great Gon, and of course Talmud Chacham, and he used to give drashas every Shabbos. And from that, he constructed his commentary on the Tanakh, known as the Alshach, Torah's Moshe. So Megillah he also has a commentary. L'chadoidi is from Reb Shlomo El-Kabatz. Reb Shlomo El-Kabatz, who was also living at that time. He was a brother-in-law of Reb Moshe Cordovero, the Ramak. He was actually killed by an Arab in Tzvas, Reb Shlomo El-Kabatz. Yeah. He also wrote a commentary on the Megillah. It's called Monos HaLevi. He was a Levi. Reb Shlomo HaLevi El-Kabatz. He wrote a sefer called Monos HaLevi on Megillah Esther. Beautiful commentary. So the Alshach also has an amazing commentary called Masas Moshe. It's not a to learn in Baruch Hashem. Jews didn't stop writing. Am HaSefer, right? So the Alshach actually asked this question. The Tzemach Tzedek had a mind. He knew Mamish Kol HaTorah, Kol everything. So he always references everything. This is an Alshach. So I actually looked up last night the Alshach. I wanted to see what's a good question. What does the Alshach say? So the Alshach gives a balabatish teretz. What's his teretz? It's a long, the Alshach wrote very long. The teretz of the Alshach is that actually the Medrash is saying something, it's quite meticulous, of course. But the Alshach says that Haman's point was really, God, you know that I'm your friend. Because nothing happens, Haman became a Kabbalist. He says, nothing happens in this world without you. So if I want to kill the Jews and I'm going to be successful, it's only because you want it. So we're essentially friends. I'm just your shliach. I'm just doing your shlichus. It's your world. It's your people. I can't do anything without you. So you know the truth. You want it, not me. I'm actually doing God's will. Yeah. Yeah, the Alshach brings his raya from Nebuchadnezzar. I'm your servant. In fact, in Tanakh, Hashem calls Nebuchadnezzar Avdi, my servant. So first of all, what are you getting angry at me? I'm your best friend. I'm the guy who does what you want. That was Haman's taina. Huh? That's called real gaslighting, yeah. Real gaslighting. In other words, not only should you not punish me, yeah, I should be the first one. I should be the first one in Gan Eden.
Where did I get my thoughts from?
Yeah, it's all yours. So my thoughts are from yours in the planning and the execution. What something can happen in this world without you, especially something so grand for the Jewish people. It's Chaveda, we're friends. I'm your buddy. I'm your man. So the Alshich brings out, a whole nekuda, but the first nekuda that he brings out is Haman, the Danish cup. It's true what happens is my will, but you're a Rasha Merusha. You care about my will and my shlichus. Yeah. For you, you don't care at all about that. All you care about is you hate the Jews and you want to murder them. That's the Alshich Svart. And he brings out that the mashal over there is connected to the fact that Amalek built a nest, and a bird built a nest, and the nest was al Svas Hayam, because the Jewish people are considered the Yam Malach Haaretz Deis Hashem Kamayim LaYam Mechasem. Right, the earth is going to be filled with divine awareness, like the water covers the sea, and the nest was built in order to destroy the Jewish people. The Yam came and flooded the nest. Is when Shaul HaMelech was sent to obliterate Amalek, but Shaul left one bird, which is Agag, the king of Amalek, and that bird is dedicated for one thing: revenge, revenge, revenge. And what's the revenge? The revenge is, we're going to dry up, we're going to destroy the whole sea. Lahashmid, Larig, La'abed, Eskola, Yehudim. There's going to be nothing left from this Yam. That's the vision of the bird. So B'Meila, he uses the word Chavere. This is one of the points in the Alshich over there. So that's what Tzemach Tzedek says. And this mimer will see the whole inyan on a completely, what we would call, different frequency. Because L'Poyel...
He's also saying that Haman thinks that Hashem is his friend, not the other way around, that Hashem thinks he's
Right,
his friend.
right.
It's his friend.
Yeah, and from Haman's perspective, his taina is, I'm doing your will, I'm your friend, and you're my friend. And God is saying, no, you're going to be destroyed and they're going to be saved. You're just an evil plotter. That answers Chaveda, yeah. Right. Yeah. He doesn't discuss the Vayivez, the beginning of the matter, just this Nakuda.
That would be just that Nakuda.
That's true.
All good.
That's true.
But it's
The whole context seems strange. The whole context seems strange. And also, it's difficult still because in the Medrash, he doesn't say the guy thinks he's his friend. The bird comes and he says, oh, you're my friend. No, he says, Chaveda comes, his friend. It's much like almost that's the reality. Right? So it's a geschmack avart, but it's still difficult. Tzarechiyah. So the mimer keragil is going to take it to a whole different frequency, so to speak. And there everything falls into place. He continues the mimer, and he changes the subject, of course. Of course, what else should we talk about? So for this you have to understand why the neshama came down. Yeah, you could trust Chassidus that whatever you're talking about, yeah, we're talking about Vayivez, Haman, this, you're going to go back to the core. What is the secret called life? The neshama comes down Lamat. Yeah. You have to tackle the tzimtzum, yeah. I listened to the mimer yesterday from the Rebbe. I heard it the tape. Before I teach, I like to hear it because you hear all the emotions and everything. No, I started to cry because I realized, who's talking about Yididus and Neshama? We're talking about a sick anti-Semite who wants to kill every Jew. So let's stick to the subject, right? You would say stop. But the truth is that this shows you, yeah, that really this is what has to be tackled in every situation. In other words, as we spoke in the previous mimer many times, yeah, there's so many different distractions in life. But if you want to touch the nekuda of life, it's inyan yedidus hanashama lamata. It's the experience of pure infinity that comes in to a completely alien environment. Everything else is arum and arum and arum. I'm making a kafas. It's like I can go to the store, I can go to this thing, I can go to this distraction. We're going back here to the core. And when you're talking about a person's life, that's the priceless gift of clarity. Priceless gift of clarity is, there's a lot of stories, and the stories are real. But to live in that story and define that story as the core issue, is ultimately a distraction. Not because the person doesn't mean well, and not because the story is inauthentic. It's authentic, and it's important to acknowledge it. But, what do we mean a sideshow? Ultimately, it's just the way the ultimate truth and pain of existence played itself out in this person's life. And that is what? You did this on a Neshama Lamata. On a higher level, it's what we spoke about the Tzimtzum in the previous mimer. So that's what he goes to. Later we'll see the connection also to the Medrash. So the Neshama comes down, Me'igri Rama Lebira Mikta. It's an expression in Gemara and Chagigid of Hey. Me'igri Rama means from the highest roof, from the highest elevation, to the deepest bird, to the deepest pit. Meaning it's not just a gradual descent, that you go from the second floor to the first floor to the basement. Me'igri Rama means from the tallest and highest and loftiest of spaces. Igra means a roof, a gag, which means very elevated. Rama is a lofty gag. And Bir is a bird, which is under the ground. And it's a mikta, which means it's deep. So it's from the highest of heights to the lowest of the lows, or as you would say, from the source of light into a dark abyss. Ad lo'elam hazeh tachten, all the way down to this world. Sheyidid zu tzarech aliyah. So the cloud, the principle here is that this yidid is tzarech aliyah. Now the term yidid tzarech aliyah is a term from Chazal Maseches Makkos. A very interesting concept there. It's talking about somebody who kills somebody unintentionally. So right, there's a question, if you have an axe, you're a butcher, and you're busy carving or cutting the meat. So you take the, what's the word for the axe he uses over there? The cleaver, right? What is it called? The cleaver. What's the word in Hebrew? I guess the sakin. He takes the cleaver and he lifts it up and brings it down over the meat to cut it. And by mistake, either it falls out of his hand or it hits the person, and it kills the person unintentionally. Right. So the question is, if it was derech aliyah or it was derech yidid, if he was going up or he was going down, or he was putting it down in order to lift it up. Yidid tzarech aliyah. So it's interesting that all these terms are used in Chassidus about the process of the soul. Coming down, but it's not stam coming down, it's tzarech aliyah. And I think it's not a mistake that it's used there, because it's like a gzeiras shava. Because the greatest danger of the Yididus HaNeshama is that could be Hayrig Nefesh B'Shgaga, that the soul could die unintentionally, or we could inflict harm on others. In other words, it's a dangerous descent, it's not stop. You're coming into a place where there could be emotional death, there could be other forms of death, disassociation, detachment. So we're saying this whole Yidid was Tzarech aliyah. So what's the inyan in this? The Hine, Klolus, Neshamas Yisrael, Kefi Shem L'mayla. All of the neshamas Yisrael, the souls of Yisrael, the way they stand in their original state, where every soul is the b'chin of tzaddikim, v'amech kulam tzaddikim. So the source is known in Kabbalah. It's known as the name of Hashem called Mem Hey 45. Basically, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, Hashem's name, when it's written out fully, it makes up 45. Yud Vav Daled, Yud is 20. Hey is Hey Aleph is another 6. So that's 26. Vav Aleph Vav is another 13. So it's 37. Right? Did I get it right? Again, Yud is Yud Vav Daled, so it's 20. And then you have a Hey is Hey Aleph is 6. So you have 26. And then Vav Aleph Vav is 13. So 39. And then you have Hey Aleph, which is another 6, so it's 45. From 39 you get to 45. In Kabbalah this is known as Shem Ma, the name of Hashem that makes up 45, which is really the whole Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey spelled out fully. If it's just Yud K Vav K, it's 26. But when we say it, you say Yud, right? Hey, Vav, it's Vav Aleph Vav, Vav. So that's the way it's spelled out fully. It's called with the milui, with the fillers, the word fully expanded. Even though when we write it, we'll just do a yud and a hey. We're not going to write out yud. But when you write it out fully, you have Shem Ma, the name of Hashem that makes up 45. That's called Ma. Ma is also the gematria of the word Adam. Aleph is 1, Daled Mem is 44, so that's 45. We spoke in the last mimer from the Maggid about Aleph, Adam, Aleph, Dam. Right? Shtei Chatzar bringing together Aleph Dam. That's Mem Hey Shem Ma. And that's what Adam represents. So B'meila. That's what he said. And that's also known as Olam HaTikon. the world of correction, of integration, of healing, where things work together with tikkun. Tikkun means they're fixed, they're organized. There's a cohesiveness in the soul. This soul, which comes from Shema, the Shirish is the name of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, and comes from tikkun. It goes down, and what does it mean? It goes down to work together, to work the tzavoida, to do its work in sublimating the body and the animal consciousness and the world. Three things. The soul comes into a body. The body is vivified by the nefesh habahamis, by the animal consciousness, which is the soul force of the body. And there's the world that it inhabits and deals with throughout its entire life. This is a tremendous yirida. From pure infinity, from pure ma, shema vaya, into a completely new reality. And it's working with this. The neshama can't escape it. The body is my temple. The animal soul is my container. There's nothing you can do in this world without your animal soul. From eating and from breathing and from going to the bathroom and from sleeping and from taking care of every biological necessity and instinct and urge of survival. That's the animal soul. So the whole neshefesh elikis, the neshama, is now defined by this temple, by this container, and then there's the world that it encounters, everybody, whatever the part of the world that they're dealing with. So this is a tremendous yirida. So we say, Mis'alim neshamas Yisrael the dargan alas yos. Yeah. This is how the neshama learns who it is. This is what allows the neshama to be elevated to a dargan alas yos, to an incredibly higher state of consciousness, deeper than it was originally. How can that be? Where you throw it into a mess, and it has to figure itself out. And everybody sitting in this room, or at least most people sitting in this room, hopefully by now know how many years it could take to figure yourself out. And even figure out one day that you're a soul, not a body, and you're a divine soul, not an animal consciousness, right? And even after you figure it out, there's still a little more work to figure it out every day, and not to fall prey. So this is a huge undertaking, to put it mildly. It's quite an investment. Yes. If we were physical beings with spiritual simulations, as in the Matrix, the whole question wouldn't apply. Then there would be another question: what are you making jokes? But we're spiritual beings, living a physical life and having a physical experience. But that very notion, to come to that viscerally, how much work does that take? How much pain does that take? It's a big yirida. It's not simple, this. In mathematics, no?
Classical and quantum physics. So either your consciousness having material experience, or you matter that somehow produces.
Yeah, that's a huge question. Yeah.
So it's exactly the difference.
Of course. Yeah. The difference of classical and quantum physics, this is a major difference. Is it matter that somehow produces consciousness? Or it's consciousness that actually produces matter? In a person's life, is it the brain that produces consciousness, or the brain is actually a product of consciousness? And it's a huge difference. It's a huge difference. It has tremendous ramifications. They used to think that consciousness is a derivative of matter. Today everything changed. Matter is a derivative of consciousness. Matter exists because of consciousness. Which means matter exists because I think it exists. It's the approach, it's the consciousness that actually creates matter. So we learned in the previous mimer in Basi Lagani, what Alter Rebbe says, if the eye had permission to see, you remember? It wouldn't, when it would look at physical matter, it would perceive immediately that it's all divine consciousness, all divine energy. And the Gashmis wouldn't even be Teufus Makim, it wouldn't even occupy space. So this Yididus HaNeshama Lamata, where its entire life is now in the Guf and Nefesh HaBahamis and Elam dealing with it. So he says, this is what the Neshama, this is what causes the soul to be elevated to a completely higher Madrega. But why? Why? So L'chayda, you might say, it crystallizes it, it tests it, it's pushback, it's resistance, it builds muscle. Meaning it's the pressure that pushes you back that allows you to flex your muscles to show power, which is all true. But Chassidus says it's really much deeper than that. It's really much deeper, because the real healing is when you understand that it's not your enemy that's coming to push back. It's the opposite. Because the truth is, ki inyane hamata, everything that it inhabits below. Shebehemi avodah the neshama Yisrael b'ridasam lamata, where the neshama is working. Sharsha me'olam hatoyu shekadam l'tikun. They're rooted in olam hatoyu, which precedes tikkun. The world of hatoyu, which literally means chaos, disintegration, it precedes the world of tikkun. And when we say precedes, it doesn't mean precedes in time. One existed 10,000 years ago, one started 5,000 years ago. What we mean is kedima b'mayla. Preceding it means in mayla, in quality. In other words, in terms of expression of the truer energy in life, toyu is higher than tikkun. Now that's a big statement. You're talking here about the body, the nefesh Bahamas, and the world. So it's not just that they become enemies to give pushback to the soul so that the soul can prove itself. No. There's an energy inside of them that the soul yearns to integrate. And that's why it's only by the encounter and the entanglement and the conversation and the ongoing relationship and marriage between the divine soul and the animal soul and the body and the world it encounters that the soul reaches its own aliyah. It gets to know who it is and become something that even before it didn't experience. To the etzem. It's connected to the last piece in Basi Lagani that we spoke about. Achen ata kel mistater, you mean? That the concealment, the darkness, is rooted in a much deeper place. Ata. Yeah. The same is true. It says in Zohar that the Yetzirah is akdemei tanise. Its complaints, its position, is superior to the position of the Nefesh Elikis. In other words, it says, my tinus come first. I was here first. The Zohar doesn't mean akdemei tanise, he was here first. It means b'mayla b'toikev. There's an intensity in the animal consciousness that is very powerful. We think its intensity is because the divine soul is weak. The mimer is going to show the intensity of the animal consciousness is because its real intensity is because it's coming from Toya, which is higher than Tikkun. So the soul basically cracks the code of the animal soul. That's what happens. Right? That's where avodah. Avodah is, you're not fighting your animal soul. You're actually teaching your animal soul where its intensity is coming from. It's coming from Toya. So when that happens, two things happen. The animal soul gets elevated. But you know what else happens? The divine soul gets elevated. It's a give and take relationship. Yeah. Higher than Tikkun, because it came in contact with Toya. So at the surface, you're talking about two enemies. As we're going to see, it's going to be a big arichas here. And at best, I could say, push back. You're fighting me, you're pushing me back, I'm going to fight you back, stronger. So it's helpful for you to crystallize your priorities, to become a man, as they say, to become a woman, whatever. You know, you got to fight, which is also very powerful. But here he's saying something much deeper. That there's a secret, there's a code, there's a password you have to get through. The Nefesh Bahamas is eclipsing its energy. Its real DNA is Olam HaToya, which is higher, it's more spiritual, it's more divine than Tikkun. Even though it doesn't look that way. It's true. It doesn't look, we're calling it an animal soul, we're not calling it a divine soul. And this encounter, which is so deep and intimate and intricate, and has so many vulnerabilities and possibilities to jeopardize the divine soul and the animal soul, is really a priceless gift and opportunity for encountering its true source of intensity, which is Olam HaToya. Yeah.
It's a code mamish. So the animal soul is pre-programmed, completely programmed, right? So the combination of the higher soul, the human soul, and the animal soul is just to be able to harness something which was programmed, pre-programmed. So of course, once you harness it, you become much more powerful. Without harnessing it, okay, you're just a creation also. Different level of creation, maybe not
beautiful.
So high.
Beautiful, yeah. He's saying the word code is very meticulous because the animal soul is programmed to be what it is. It's pre-programmed. Its focus has to be survival, and it will develop anything to be able to live in survival. What it means, what survival means in the vision of the animal soul, which is a very limited vision.
That's not our enemy.
Deep down, it's not our enemy. It could look like your enemy, and it can do things that an enemy does. No question. And that's part of the confusion. Yeah, that's part of the distraction. If you crack the code, if you go to the back end of its program, you'll see really it's a manifestation of Olam HaToyu. That's what it is. And precisely by dealing with it, the Nefesh HaLekis reaches its ultimate aliyah. And it was worth to come down so low to be able, it's not just a gradual descent. It's like jumping off a cliff, more than jumping off a cliff. And we spoke in the last moment about the abandonment wound. That wound of abandonment of the soul that was mamish ein soif, ma de tikkun. And suddenly, boom, dropped. Welcome. Yeah. Now, and it's important to understand this. I don't mean philosophically, I mean viscerally. Right? Imagine the neshama is mamish ein sof, it's a chelik elokah mimal, and that's its entire reality, that's its identity, those are its emotions and instincts and urges. And it's literally thrown off a cliff. And part of being thrown off a cliff is that it doesn't remember where it came from. Right? It's not like, oh, that's my home. It doesn't remember anything. In other words, it really remembers, but in terms of the body consciousness, there's no memory. And it gets dropped off into this new crazy reality, right? And there's a bunch of clowns there. Welcome to a beautiful home, hey! And there's balloons, and there's cotton candy, and there's chocolate, schmirling chocolate, and there's a couple of there's some sushi, and even falafel and shawarma, yeah? That's supposed to heal it, but okay, I get it. Right? And their job is to make you comfortable in your new home. It's like the first day in camp, The counselors, we're going to have an amazing, I want my mother. No! And here's your mattress. But this is not called a mattress, it's called straw. You remember the mattresses in camp? If you had a mattress, right? But no, now the Nefesh HaBahamis now takes over and says, this is great. We're going to make this work. And it does whatever it has to do to make this reality. And this becomes the new reality. And this reality is all about survival and whatever that means. And sometimes my entire life, that's where I'm living. And I develop all my instincts and urges and I figure out what's the best way to cope and survive. And then the worst thing happens is I don't even know there was a jump anymore. So this is the only reality. So now ich bin der Meshuggah for not fitting in. How many people walk around this world, ich bin der Meshuggah, why don't I fit in? Like, why am I not enjoying this social event? You're not enjoying it because nobody's enjoying it. They're all miserable. It's just everybody learned to smile. There can't be an enjoyment when, misaligned with yourself. There's no such a thing. Either you're aligned with yourself or you're not aligned with yourself. Either the guf and the nefesh HaBahamis, the code is cracked and you know what it really is about, and then you could be aligned. And if not, it's just another distraction, another distraction, another distraction, another distraction. Some people just know how to distract themselves for longer and much more efficiently. And usually the more sensitive ones are the more miserable ones because it's like, this does not feel good. This does not feel right. Josh, you understand?
I wish.
Okay, good. Good answer. Your teufels, this is very, very important. It means Toyu is higher. It has a divine energy that is more reflective of the divine source, and hence it's intense. Its intensity is because there's a strength there that's more powerful. Yeah. Yeah. The tachlis is to integrate Toyu into Tikkun. Yeah. Yeah. Therefore, they bidder in Yani Amata Shashashim Shekadam Latikun. So by sublimating, by being mavadet, the word bidud is from the word boided, right? By having clarity. It's always about clarity. Clarity, like in Halach and Hilchos Shabbos, is only called Boider. What's Boider? Boider is selecting, dissecting the Toiv from the Psoilus. So what does Boider mean? Boider always means clarity. This is coping, survival skills. This is divine. That Boider, the Boider of the Inyanei Hamata. That clarity, Avodas HaBirudim is everything. Because Avodas HaBirudim means you're being present in the situation and you have clarity. What is coming from what, and what's the price I'm going to pay for going down this rabbit hole or for abstaining from it. Yeah, it's almost like when you're eating, people who are conscious of the food that they eat and they're looking for nutritious values, especially they're suffering from diabetes or other stuff, and they need to be very, very careful, right? It's like a piece of food. You ask yourself, what's in this food? What's the price I'm going to pay if I digest it? What's the price I'm going to pay if I don't? Mindful eating, exactly. That's what biruring means. Every moment I come in contact with my guf and nefesh Bahamas and anything in the world is the avodah of birur. The avodah of birur from the word barur. Let there be clarity what is happening. You're going down a path now. Maybe one bite of food, but it's a path. That's called a birur. It has to be birur. Birur is not pressure. Birur is liberating. It's clarity. It's owning yourself, and it's knowing that thoughts, words, and actions have a price. Right? As somebody once said, the cost of doing business as usual. It adds up. It accumulates. The emotional load on the brain. It accumulates. It's the cost of doing business as usual. There's a cost. If breakfast, lunch, and supper is dedicated to cheesecake every single day, over a few years, there's going to be a cost. The body at some point is going to say, here, eat the kasha that you digested. Here's the kasha. And the same is true with everything in life. Avodas HaBirudim means don't delude yourself. There's a real system. There's a real hierarchy. There's a real reality. Don't deny your life force and energy. Now, the animal soul doesn't know all this, doesn't like this language. Not because it really doesn't like it, but because it's used to surviving in a certain way. That's what it does. That's how it got its validation. That's how it got its love. That's how it became successful. That's how it gets your bills paid, or it's trying to get your bills paid. And it doesn't know better. And it's all really so the nekuda here is going to be that there's a secret here that it's hiding. It itself doesn't know its secret. Because if it would know its secret, it wouldn't be hiding. It doesn't know its secret. Again, there's a password here. The animal soul itself is talking and talking and talking and plopping and plopping and plopping. But there's an energy here that you need to understand. And the reason it's so powerful is not because evil is powerful, but because toyu is powerful. We mistake its power as a brute, lowly power. Really, that's also camouflaging that there's a holy power. In what?
In the programming language.
Yeah.
When we build computer systems, so it's mamash code. There is such thing. It's called interrupt. So that it was also part of the design, probably from animal soul, that it can be interrupted. So it means you can interrupt, and that's the time where you can actually mevire. What is it? Is it good to go this?
So you're saying in a back-end program, you interrupt the program.
There is such a thing as
interrupt. Very nice.
You can basically, interrupt is a hardware.
Very nice.
Hardware instruction to the program, which says now you have a chance to do something, which is basically analyzing what you just went through.
Wow.
So it's a concept in the computer.
So this is a hardware program.
It's basically instruction in the CPU in the computer program
Wow.
unit, which says interrupt, which you can override and see what's going on.
So the nefesh, you're saying the nefesh Abamas gets to look at itself.
We have interrupts. Whenever we come to Shia, we get interrupts.
Very good.
I just did interruption, by the way.
He's saying the purpose of every shir is this interrupt. Okay. So this creates an aliyah in the nefesh alakis, which comes from tikkun, not from toyu. It's no in the explanation, that's Alter Rebbe's explanation of the words of the Arizal. pasuk says in Parshas Eikev that I took you out of Egypt and I fed you the manna in the desert to teach you that a human being doesn't live on bread alone. A human being lives on Motzei Pi Hashem. Motzei Pi Hashem means on the utterance, on the words that come out of Hashem's mouth, meaning from Hashem's energy. So literally it means that God was showing you that bread is not just what sustains you. Hashem is sustaining you through the bread. And therefore he gave manna. In other words, the source of life was Hashem. The Arizal, Kabbalah, takes it much deeper and says it's not the Vart in the Pasuk. The Pasuk is saying something else. And that is, Shechayis ha'adam hi mimoitze pi Hashem shebelechem. He's not saying it's not the bread that gives you food. God gives you food. He says, no, don't you, the moitze pi Hashem in the lechem. This is the classic Pnimiyus HaTorah. It's not divorcing Ruchnius from Gashmius. He's telling you what the Gashmius is. You learn that bread is nothing. Bread is nothing. God gives you life. What's the impression? Yeah, don't get a job, for example. The Arizal says that's not the Vart. The Vart is, it's the Moitze Pi Havaya in the Lechem. What do you think Lechem is? You think Lechem is bread? You think Lechem is it's divine energy. It's Moitze Pi Hashem. It's the Pi Hashem, it's the Dvar Hashem, Basarim Amoris, Nivra Olam, that creates the grain, that creates the lech, every kernel in spell. I'm doing it with the Seder Hachshivas today, because you're not allowed to eat wheat anymore. So every kernel in that grain, what is it? The chemistry, ultimately, is spiritual, divine chemistry. Lo yala lechem levadei. Don't look at the lechem as this isolated physical creature. Give me another bagel. Moitze Pi Hashem yichyadim. The Moitze Pi Hashem in the lechem. That's the Arizal's teaching. The Moitze de Ketach. In other words, bread has energy. Bread is every food is divine energy. The Moitze Pi Hashem that gives you chiyus. How did it happen that the world, this random experience, that all these things that grow happen to be exactly suitable to feed all of our bodies and replenish ourselves and keep every organism alive, every human and every animal and every bird and every insect and every fish. I mean, pretty randomly, the ecosystem and the food system and the food web and chain web, it's so balanced and perfect and meticulous. Like, you're looking at a peach, so you really, it's Moitze, which is a code. That's why it's called Dvar Hashem, of course. It's called Dvar Hashem because it's a code. The best words, spiritual words for a code, for a system like DNA, for a sequence of energies or chemicals is dibur, words. That's what words do. Sequence of letters, and that's exactly what they call DNA, which is the back-end program of every living organism. So the way Chazal put it is, Basarim, Bamoris, Nivra Olam, or in the Bereshis, Vayomer Elokim. It's all God speaking. Because the whole world is essentially a code. That's what it is. And the closer you get to the core of things, the closer you're getting to the code. This is what Arizal says. Here there's the famous question, it's Alter Rebbe's question, look at the Torah, Parshas Tzav. I don't understand. The Rebbe says, I don't understand. Like the Arizal, the Adam also has a Motzei Pi Hashem. There's the chemistry of the human body and the human soul, the human consciousness is also Dvar Hashem. Fakert, it's the Dvar Hashem that creates the human brain. So you're right, Lechem has Motzei Pi Hashem, no questions. But why am I looking for the grain? The grain is not looking for me. The pshat is Motzei Pi Havaya Sheba'adam Hu Lamata B'Madrega Motzei Pi Hashem B'Shebelechem Asher Yechel Adam. Because the Motzei Pi Hashem, the energy that vivifies and animates the person, is in a lower level than the Motzei Pi Hashem in the bread that a person eats. Ki Motzei Pi Havaya Sheba'adam Amayla Matikon. Motzei Pi Havaya Shebelechem Valderech Zebeklalos in Yanei Elam Umitoyer Shekadam Latikon. The Motzei Pi Hashem in the person is already the Motzei Pi Hashem, the way it's integrated in the world of Tikkun, Shema of Tikkun, and therefore, even though it's Motzei Pi Hashem, but it needs the bread, because the bread, and he says bread here is a mashal for everything in the physical world. So it's bread, and it's fruits, and it's vegetables, and it's meat, it's all produce, and it's everything we deal with in the world. Are also Motzei Pi Hashem, but which Motzei Pi Hashem? From the world of Toyim. And therefore, the person needs it. ומיטעם זה צריך האדם לדומם צמא חי, ואילו דומם צמא חי אינם צריכים לאדם. Why is it we need daimim tzemei? You take away from us daimim. Daimim is the inanimate. Earth is daimim. Snow is daimim. Daimim is inanimate, inorganic matter, what looks silent. Tzemeach is the whole world of produce, the world of botany, everything that grows. Chai is the world of the animal kingdom. We desperately need daimim tzemei. You get rid of daimim tzemei, kaput, we can't live for a moment. All of everything we need daimim tzemei. Every meal comes from daimim tzemei. You can't live without it. Even if you're a vegan, you're living off tzemeach. If you're a vegetarian, you're living off tzemeach, or living off chai, eggs, whatever it is, or you're living off chai. Daimim tzemei don't need us. Most of the animals actually would probably be better off, yeah? The forests are not looking for us, the rainforests are fine. Stay where you are, stop cutting me down. The deer would be happier, the bears would be happier, the squirrels would be happier. You remember by Corona when the streets were empty and suddenly the deer who took over the place, Hamachai was Gan Eden for them. Got rid of the Mishagoyim here, who came and took over our world. A human being can't live without. Why is it? Why is it that the human being, which is the crown jewel of creation, is desperately dependent on all the lower forms of creation, and they're not dependent on us? Something is off. The child is dependent on the parent, more than the parent is dependent on the child. The pshat is because the daimim tzemei come from Toyu. And Toyu is higher than Tikkun. Tikkun needs Toyu. That's what he says. It's only because daimim tzemei fell down low, so the person needs to elevate them back to their source. That's what they need. But the aliyah of the person is only by going down into the daimim tzemei to be a mevarer, to clarify it, to dissect it, and to elevate it, because they come from Toyu, which precedes Tikkun. So that's why be'etzem they don't need the person. They do need the person to bring them back to who they are. That they do. But when you look in the survival, the tree is a tree. The animal is an animal. The fish is a fish. They're doing very, very well. We must have the fish to survive. We must have the tree to survive. Because that's the var. The Motzei Pi Hashem, the soul, the tikkun, the system it's looking for it. You need it, tell you. It's not a mistake. So it's not like the soul could have stayed up there. The soul needs the body and needs the animal consciousness. It's getting something very deep. So this teaches us a whole different dimension of the Yeridus HaNeshama. It's not just a Yerid into crazy darkness that you're going to fight through and then you're going to have a receipt and you're going to be allowed into Gan Eden. There's purpose, and every part of the journey is the destination. In other words, any instinct of my animal consciousness is another spark of Toyu that's coming to be redeemed. And every day you'll be dealing with other stuff, because once you dealt with one layer of Toyu, there's another layer. It's like an onion. There's different layers. It's layers and layers. So every day, literally, there's something else to surrender. There's something else to be milah. You'll say, but I'm already done. I did the work. I got it. Baruch Hashem. Now we take you to the next step. You're those who play computer chess, right? There's a lot of levels, right? You go to the 8th level, a move could take a half an hour. Huh? It gets harder and harder on one level, but it also gets easier and easier because you have clarity. You understand what I'm saying? Once you have clarity, this is going to cause you nausea. This is going to cause you bliss. So it's not a question anymore. It may be hard because the nefesh Bahamas is scared. Right. But what happens often is that the clarity could become eclipsed. In other words, part of the coping mechanism of the nefesh Bahamas doesn't tell you that it's coping. It tells you this is reality. So therefore the person could get confused. Right? That's why we must have the education, the awareness, the psyche. The learning of this is so critical constantly, because learning doesn't create a regulated nervous system. Learning doesn't create emotional integration. Learning does not change and heal emotions. But learning is the paradigm. It's the foundation. That if you're ready to do the work, you have a reference point. This is where it's at. And it's not going to change. The Nefesh HaLekis is never, ever going to surrender to the coping mechanism of the Nefesh HaBahamis. It's just never going to happen. There's no revision. Like, this is reality. But it's good news, because if this is really reality, it's the only source of reality. It's real. So every other source of bliss is going to be a fantasia. You know what a fantasia? Fake news. And it's going to get you nauseous at the end. But there's a grieving element, because if my Nefesh HaBahamis did something for 50 years to cope, to say goodbye to that is you have to escort it goodbye. You have to do it with empathy. It's almost you have to make a ceremony with your animal soul. You have to sit it down and say, listen, we did something for 50 years. We're going to say goodbye. And you know what? You have to cry with it. It was hard. These coping mechanisms were my friend. They were crazy friends, but as we'll soon see what a friend is. They were crazy friends, but they were friends. They were trying to protect me. In their own mind, they meant well. They wreaked havoc, but they really meant well. They meant well. And this is even your addictions and your craziness and your insanity and even your ability to shut down half your heart or whole your heart and become detached and become like a zombie and a robot and become entrenched in ridiculous habits or just futile habits. Whatever it is, every person in their own life. This one with anger, and this one with hate, and this one with jealousy, and this one with people-pleasing, and this one with spinelessness, and this one with aggression and fight and flight and pleasing and fawning and freezing, whatever. You'll talk to your best friend to give you the diagnosis. Right? It's almost the animal soul developed all of these midas, as it says in Tanya, to survive. Depression, disassociation, complete numbness, emotional death. It was literally survival. Now to come and say, we're going to make a levaya, you have to make a levaya with respect. You don't just bury the mace. Yeah, you don't break up sending a text. So as the Kotzker Rebbe said, as mit zerbrechter Taiva, werd von eine zwei. Yeah, you break your taiva, you made from 1 2. Meaning, so a few years ago, one of my uncles passed away, my mother's brother-in-law, my mother's sister's husband. His name was Reb Shmuel Mermelstein. So I was at the cemetery, the Bais Medrash. So it was a cold day. It was a winter day. I think actually it was Shvat, and it was the Chaver Kaddish worked very, very fast, and Kvura, I don't know, it was like 10-15 minutes. It was already over. So my brother is Baruch, his name is Baruch, he turns to me and he says, a guy lives for 75 years, yeah, and he disappears in 15 minutes. He says, how does that work? 75 years a person lives, and in 15 minutes, boom, everybody's going home. You know, it's the tragedy of life, right? The tragedy of life, what you invest in. So the point is that Nefesh HaBahamis is 50 years, 52 years, 60 years, 40 years, 30 years, whatever the number you got to apply is. It's been doing something a certain way, and it developed. Let's face it. We're all here today. It accomplished its mission. And that was also a holy mission. The holy mission was to keep you alive. Tortured, disassociated, full of anxiety. We got it. But alive. Okay, Yena Leb, but alive. Yeah, they came to Shul. They said, Chaim Yankel was nifte. The guy says, nifte, pifte, Rabbi gesund. Yeah. You understand? Some people, he's dead. Rabbi gesund. The main thing is, I have my coffee in the morning. I ruggle a Danish, noch besser. The Schwitz Friday, gewaldig. What? It's Mamash Mashiach. Nifte, pifte, Rabbi gesund. Rabbi, you got your stuff. So you can't just say bye. That's really what a funeral. What's a funeral? I don't mean to use this dark humor. What's kavod hames? Kavod hames. Don't just with respect, but derech. So even when you're burying this part, because you realize it was never alive. It was never alive. So you're burying it. You can't just bury it with dismissiveness, with disdain. It doesn't work that way, because then it comes back to bite you. Because it really worked hard. There's almost a grieving process of together, like saying goodbye to this old, coping, crazy, insane mechanism that kept me here. And it's a dignity. It's not a dignity because you're in doubt. You're so not in doubt. It's so clear what this is. And because of that, it's almost like the more you, I'm going to say something weird, the more you have respect for it, the more you get rid of it. Because you know really what it is. Like, you can have empathy for it. You understand? The less you have respect for it, it's going to come back tomorrow.
So why do you want to get rid of it? You have to appreciate it. You have to
Yeah. Get rid of the clip of it, the shell, the husk, the lie, the fake news of it, the coping, the substitute. That's what you're getting rid of. You understand? When you have respect for it, it allows you to have empathy for it. So then when you say goodbye to it, it's a real goodbye. It's like, I get you. If it's without respect, if it's like, you mamzer, you tseach shegets behema chaya, get out of my life. That's what the Chassidic Rebbe says. You're breaking the taiva, you just got two. Tomorrow, it's going to come back more. You see it practically with everybody. You see this. You get angry, just it's a pasnisht. It's the Nefesh HaBahamas getting rid of the Nefesh HaBahamas. You know how successful that is? You hire the Ganav to be the bodyguard. You ever do that? Right? You understand? Yasser Arafat gets the Nobel Prize for peace. You know, you take the Palestinian Authority to take care of Gaza. You know what that looks like, right? You understand? You take the biggest murderers who are camouflaged themselves as not it's a joke. Whenever you break your taiva with shame and guilt, you're using the energy that you're trying to heal from to heal you. It's your brokenness that you're using to heal you. So how much healing is there going to be? Because all shame and guilt is coming from this sense of disassociation. That's why there's never growth through shame and guilt. It's not a Jewish thing, shame and guilt. Forgive me. And if you have shame and guilt about the fact you have shame and guilt, it's even worse. Because now it's like, I'm really dead. Now, why do I have shame? Don't have shame, idiot! And that's what people do, especially when it comes Elul. I don't mean to remind anybody. How much shame, and now I have shame because I have shame. And Rabbi, why I said you're not supposed to have guilt. So now I'm guilty that I have guilt. And it's an endless cycle, but these are all just coping mechanisms of survival that are complete disassociation with your reality. And it's not intellectual, it's regulated. That's the power of this vart. When you say it's tayu, you're not trying just to give up a haskalah, a philosophy. It means when you're saying goodbye to it, it's with dignity. It's understanding what's happening. It's even understanding its intensity. That's what bitter looks like. So now when I make a levaya for these coping mechanisms, and I say goodbye, hopefully forever, it's in a different way. It's with kavod hames. You could cry. You could cry with an Nefesh HaBahamas. Yeah, this is, I did the best I can with the tools I had to survive. The olam is taif is what we're saying. Huh? It's not right. It's not just a nameless crook, a criminal, a mafiosa, godfather without a name. It's not that. Put him at seva. Go visit once in a while. It's very important, this. We, as much as our animal soul is called our enemy, it's really there's a friend here. There's a friend. Now, there's a friend and a friend. Let's not push it. Okay? There's a friend who you trust for eitzes, and a friend that you borrow money from if he has money and you pay back. And there's a friend who's a true partner and colleague who gets you and you get him. I'm not saying that. The Nefesh HaBahamas can be very, very deceptive. But a friend in the sense that in his own mind, he's doing the best he can to protect you. And for that, you need derech eretz. And derech eretz doesn't mean I surrender. Derech eretz doesn't mean I don't make boundaries. Derech eretz doesn't mean I become prey to these mechanisms that are completely destructive. Derech eretz means I appreciate the mechanism and the system, and there's no reason for me to live in shame, because this was exactly why my soul came down to the world. Welcome to the club. Thank you. That's why the people who are worked out are the least judgmental people. People think that the opposite of judgmentalism is that you don't care so much. You don't have such Yiras Shamayim. In other words, people who are real Yiras Shamayim are judgmental. You're a lowlife, you're a lowlife, you're a lowlife because I fear God. And if I really fear God, you're all a bunch of lowlifes. If I'm not judgmental, it's because I'm a liberal, progressive, left-weak, spineless, pop psychology, woke, cancel, open-minded, free-spirited, bohemian, Bahama. Bohemian Meloshin Bahama. Yeah, that's the choice. Judgmental people are intense. They have Yiras Shamayim, and non-judgmental people have no values. But it's really the opposite. That's really the nekuda. It's really the opposite. The moment you understand the truth of the Nefesh HaBahamas, judgmentalism is a ridiculous word because everybody's soul is dealing with tremendous amount of coping mechanisms. And everybody figures it out in their own way. So what exactly are you judging? What exactly is the shame? What exactly is the guilt? That's why people who are worked out, they don't flinch with these things. Of course. It's not like, should I still accept you? Should I not accept you? The moment you have a vision of a person's nefesh elokis, you get it. You get it. So we can hold space for where you are right now, and we can hold space for the greatness that's going to emerge after you work out these stuff. And you don't have to judge and dismiss. And the moment I'm busy with judging, I'm busy with my own coping mechanism. It's like my own dirt that I didn't deal with. That's what it is. You're triggering my discomfort. So if I could say you're a sick person, I'll feel a little better.
Like they want to be judgmental with themselves, they're deflecting it on others.
Of course. That's what the Baal Shem Tov says. Another person is a mirror. Really, it's all judgmentalism is a form of judgmentalism on yourself. Especially your kids. Oh yeah, because they trigger really. But it's hard for me to say I'm judging myself, so it's on you, but it's really me. I'm just talking about me. Yeah, somebody once said, a wise man, he said, nobody ever talks about anybody else. Everybody's always talking about themselves. I only see in you what I see in me. Even though I'm talking about you. What do you mean? I'm talking about you. I know I'm talking about you, but I'm talking about myself. Because I see you through the prism of me. So how can I be talking about you? Who said it? That guy? Also himself. But he knew he was talking about himself. That's the difference. The Baal Shem Tov says, the mission says, people see everybody's leprosies besides their own. Literally, it means that a kohen is not allowed to see his own negoyim because he's not objective. So everybody sees everybody's leprosy, chutz min negei. And the Baal Shem Tov also said, all the leprosies you see on the outside is just a reflection. This doesn't mean the other person doesn't have issues. That's not what was. The Baal Shem Tov knew that people have issues. Trust me, he wasn't naive. But it means the issue I have with your issues is not your issue, it's my issue. Right? The story about the story is my story, not your story. So that's why when you understand this, the inyan of Tayu of the Nefesh HaBahamas, it's a radical acceptance of the reality, and it's a radical non-acceptance of the darkness of the reality. Yes, and that's how you transform it. It's a radical acceptance of the reality. There's nothing to be ashamed about. You could talk about everything. The right person, the right context. But it's a radical, together with that comes a radical sensitivity to the fact that I'm not going to fall prey to the darkness of the reality and what it's presenting itself as. On the contrary, don't run away from it. By running away from it, you're running away from your tachlis, which is tayu, finding your tayu, to be able to elevate it. But don't get sucked in. By the way, it's camouflage because you needed to find is the spark. So not only must you not run, you have to embrace it because this is where it's at. The neshama doesn't say, I'm not going down. Of course you're going down. This is where it's all at. You go for your nefesh habahamis and your world. But when you embrace it, know what to embrace. You're embracing because you're searching for that which is at the depth of the nefesh habahamis. And that's the mitzvah pi Hashem in the bread is much deeper than the mitzvah pi Hashem in the Adam. And that's why you need the mitzvah pi Hashem in the bread to survive. It's not just because our cells, right, need amino acid, and amino acid comes from the soil because it's in the nitrogen that merges with the oxygen that goes into the rain, that goes into the soil that the animals eat, so we get amino acids so our cells can be rebuilt. It's very geschmack that. And it suddenly explains scientifically why lightning is essential to survival. So that's all part of the intricate design. But the pnimius of all that is, there's the mitzvah pi Hashem there, that my cells need and my soul needs. And that interaction is giving me something very powerful. So when I'm eating something, the food is giving me something, not just physical. The food has a spiritual energy that has a power over me, and that's why it has a power over me, because it has a spiritual power over me. The mistake we make is we allow the physical aspect of it to overpower us, and then we actually lose the plot. Because now what happens, instead of me helping the food go back to its source, I was hijacked by the outer shell, and boom, the food is like, oh, this guy lost the plot again. Let's hope next meal he, let's hope by next meal he comes back to himself. The sparks of food come from Toyu. That's why a person needs them. So the food essentially needs me to bring it back to its source. But I need the food to be able to get in touch with Toyu. And that's why there's such intensity. You say, what with Vayivez Haman? Why is this? So what's the big deal about this? You know that in 5 minutes you're going to be in the bathroom. Right? That's basically, it revolves around 9 seconds. The whole restaurant industry, yeah? How much does it take for the waiter? How long the waiter to come with the fancy plate with the music? Da, 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 da. Right? And the stew and the Chinese, the fried, stir-fried, whatever your taste is. He comes with a beautiful plate, colorful. Yeah. So it's chazirai, whatever, but it's colorful. And he puts it down. Yeah. How long is that presentation? You're starving. You come to a restaurant starving. That's why Jews go to restaurants. That's why they order the whole menu. And then you eat it, right? Once it's in your saliva, like after 3 seconds, if the waiter would take it out of your mouth and redeliver it, yeah, you would sue the company, sue the restaurant for $4 million or $20 million. So what's this presentation about? A couple of seconds. That's a multi-billion-dollar industry. But when you're hungry, mevret meshiga from them. I get it. All taivas are that way. Everything that's what we do. So b'meila, the food needs me, but I also need the food. But what I need in the food is the nitzutz of it. So that's mindful, conscious eating. And the same is true with every encounter with this world. Either it tears me away from alignment, or I elevate it, I sublimate it, I become a mashpia. So that's the relationship we have with it. The Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Lubavitch Rebbe, was once eating. He would eat with a spoon. So it was soup with lakshan, soup with spaghetti. So he was picking it up, and it kept on slipping down. So after a few times, he smiled. He says, "Es noch nicht fertig zu nes Bade werden." He's not ready for the biddur. Nicht fertig. It's a glitch in the system. He's not ready yet. Okay. Interesting. Who speaks like that about? They speak like that about soup and lakshan. Es noch nicht fertig nes Bade werden. Just gulp it down, and 20 seconds later, eat the next course. There's a relationship. That's real. Es noch nicht fertig. Es noch nicht fertig nes Bade werden. They say he was also once eating soup. It was kneidlach. And he was sitting by the table and he was fatracht abissel. He was thinking. And while he was thinking with his spoon, he was like, moving it around. And it was a deep bowl. So he had a masharis in the house. A guy, his name was Reb Mendel. So a lot of the Gaboyim didn't have a lot of seichel. That's why they were hired. Because they didn't know what they're seeing, what they're not seeing. They didn't have seichel always. You could trust them more, they didn't analyze, so this guy was known, his name was Mendel the Masharis. He wasn't the brightest kid on the block, let's put it that way. But he was ibigagab and he was loyal. So he thought that the Rebbe Rashab is looking for the kneidlach, because he's like this, going for like 10 minutes, a machtazai. So he says, Rebbe, the kneidlach seinen tief unten. It darf gehen weiter herab, für die gefinnen. You have to go much deeper, you'll find the kneidlach. He said, the Rebbe Rashab looked at him and said, Mendel, hast mir mechaya given. You just gave me life. Rabbi Elkan told the stories. He said he thinks the pshat is that he was probably thinking about something like a serious issue. Reb Mendel said, "Gay tiffe, go deep. You'll find it. You'll find it. You'll find it." He meant the kneidlach, and the Rebbe said, "Ah, hasme mechaya given." He wasn't just complimenting him, whatever. I'm not looking for the kneidlach, but he said it was an inyan amiti. So it's really very vivid what you're talking about here, right? You're not looking for the kneidl, but there's something inside the kneidl. In those days, kneidlach was a big taiva. Today we're a little more sophisticated. Kneidlach is called a skafia. But then kneidlach was a big taiva. Today, if you eat kneidlach, you're already a tzaddik hadar. You could probably be a gadol tomorrow if you only eat kneidlach. Huh? Yeah. But amal kneidlach was considered a taiva. Today, we upped it, right? It's iPhone version 14, taiva version 14. But then kneidlach was considered a psa chashav azach. So it's not the kneid that you're looking for. It's something deep. For that, he said, Rebbe, you got to go down more. He says, Asma mechaya. He saw it as a message. Don't be afraid to go down into toyu, where there's chaos, because over there you have tremendous netzutzas. Yeah. And really you're going up. Yeah. Be'ezer Hashem will continue tomorrow. Oh, so that we'll see. What is exactly toyu? Why does it fall down so low? What's the whole process? That's going to be b'hamshich. But that's the nekuda. And b'meila, you're really going down, but essentially you're going up. So dirid tzarech aliyah. We'll continue tomorrow, 7:45. Be'ezer Hashem bli neder. If you're not taking the mimer home, if you could just bring it back here. And if you're taking it home, bring it back to the next year, because we only have limited amount of copies. Have a beautiful day, everybody.
I don't know if I'm going ahead of the mimer or not, or behind. So, is there a way for animal soul to be elevated to the level of human soul?
Okay, we'll see. We'll see.
Or you just, finally make a show, give a space, embrace,
Right.
respect, vary. But the question is, is there a way to much bring it to the next level? Like Hanoch was taking
Right.
a life with his body, right? So it means that his body was already not even a body.
Right.
So
Yeah, so the nefesh habahamis could be elevated and it becomes nichlol in the nefesh elikis. Subsumed.
to the point that it's also
Right, yeah.
So because it's one thing is to say,
Oh, you shekayach, yeah.
its destination is basically.
Let me just see
bottom
one
line.
thing. Just one thing.
Basically, the bottom line is that destination is death, or destination could be subsumed in the nefesh elikis to the point that it's alive, stays alive forever.
Right.
So that's the question.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, I
no,
think
the
it.
answer
I think it's true. It could be it could be.
could be nichlal.
Yeah, nichlal. Yeah.
Could be nichlal to the point that it becomes shtickle elikis.
Yeah. Not shtickle.
Ganzen, no? So
That's the whole tachlis. That's the tachlis to elevate the nefesh
Is
habahamis.
the Dira B'Tachtonim Mitztakam is this?
Dira b'tachtonim is the nefesh habahamis and the guf and the world.
Nichol
Yeah.
Mamish.
Yeah.
Not like lo kipshuta, kipshuta mamish, huh?
Kipshuta. Yeah.
So it's possible. So, amazing.
Of course.
Has anybody was on the level to except Hanoch? I know only Hanoch from the Midrashic leadership.
Listen, and Tanya says that's what a real tzaddik is. A tzaddik is that he it says in Gemara in Yerushalmi about Avram, Atzasas levavoi neman, that Avram transformed both hearts.
So that's Balshu. It's not a tzaddik.
No, I'm saying in that sense, but I'm saying the ultimate idea of tzaddik versus a Beinani, a Rasha, is the idea that the animal soul is not just kept in bay, it's not just kept in bay and controlled, but it's transformed. Its energy is completely one with the nefesh elikis. It's like there's no barrier anymore. They're completely not just partners, but like one. V'hayu lebasar echad.
To the point that there's there's no barrier.
Shalom bayis, the ultimate shalom bayis in the person's heart. Complete harmony.
Opinion because that's a traumatic experience.
We missed you on Shabbos. I heard you weren't feeling well. Okay.